2024 is officially over, and this has been such a bizarre year for the Nintendo Switch. Because even though we've had next to no news about the Nintendo Switch 2, apart from the fact that we know it exists and that it will be backwards compatible, it hasn't been that spectacular a year for Nintendo Switch games. Now don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean this year hasn't been filled with some absolutely incredible Nintendo Switch games. But there were an awful lot of remakes and spin-offs this year, and not a lot of the big, heavy-hitting Nintendo Switch titles. So even if they haven't told us any information about it, it really does feel like they're gearing up for the Switch 2. Which means this could be my last ever video, ranking every Nintendo Switch game I played this year. Now as always, we're doing my normal ranking system, which means we're going from S tier games all the way down to F tier, with the S tier games being games that are absolute must-plays. These are staple games on the Nintendo Switch that I would recommend to just about anyone. And then we'll be working our way all the way down to F tier games. And these are games that I just simply do not recommend to anyone. And this can be for a few reasons, like for example, the gameplay not being enjoyable, or the most common reason, which is this game does not run well on the Nintendo Switch. And as always, this is just my personal opinion, so if I placed a game lower down than you would, I'm just glad you spent your money well. I think we're going to start off today's video with one of the easiest to rank games of the entire year, and that is Balatro, which is going to go in the S tier. This has to be my personal game of the year. This is the game I've played the most of this entire year, and this is the game that's kept me coming back for more every single time. I think the magic with Balatro is it starts off relatively simple, as it's all more or less based on poker hands, where the rarer the poker hand you play, the more points you score, and you pass each of the rounds by scoring a set score, with each round getting progressively harder. But the magic in Balatro is how it teaches you how to play the game, and how it shows you that it's just a little bit different from poker. And the more you play Balatro, the more you learn about the game, and the more you're convinced that you're getting better at it, meaning that you just want to carry on playing just one more game to see if you could get further than you did last time. And before you know it, it's hit 3 AM and you don't know where the time's gone because you've been playing this for the last 7 hours. This has happened to me more times than I'd like to admit. This has been nominated for Game of the Year for a reason, and every single person I've recommended this to play has had a fantastic time playing it, because it truly does introduce the game and the mechanics in such a fabulous way that everyone just seems to have a blast. Next up is a game that just recently released and is absolutely beautiful, and that is Naiad. As this simply sees you float down a river. And as you go, not only will you be able to take in the absolutely breathtaking scenery, but you'll also be able to interact with all the animals and even the fauna you see along the way. And I love how many secrets can be found in each of the 16 different levels that will see you float through anything from springs, lakes, caves, to even forests. And even though the main premise of this game is to simply float until you reach the sea, there is a surprising amount for you to do, and it's just interactive enough that you feel immersed in the entire area. I feel like this game was largely overlooked, especially because it released in America first on the Switch and then later came to Europe, but it's definitely a game I recommend. I've had a fantastic time with it, and for that reason, I'm going to put it in A tier. Next, let's get through a few of my personal disappointments. So first up, we have Princess Peach Showtime, which all in all, for a full price game, just didn't deliver what I was looking for. Not only was it short, it also got a little bit repetitive after a while. And I could normally look past the length of a game as long as it delivered a flawless experience, but Princess Peach most definitely didn't. There was performance issues, there also wasn't all that much of a story with no voice acting in it whatsoever, and I really feel like Princess Peach deserved a Mario Odyssey-like experience, and instead she got given a spin-off game that just kind of made me feel disappointed. Now don't get me wrong, Princess Peach is not a horrendous game, so it's definitely not gonna go in the F tier. But I do want to point out that this was a full price game that lasted all of about 8 hours. So for that reason, despite the fact that it did have its fun moments, it's going in the C tier. Another disappointment, and it's also going to go in the C tier, was Endless Ocean Luminous. And the reason it's going to go here is the fact that it is once again a full price game, and also the gameplay just wasn't that interesting. The single player experience didn't give you much of a story or a reason to play it. It really didn't feel like you were an actual human swimming around the ocean, as none of the fish interacted with you whatsoever. They didn't acknowledge your presence, and because you had no impact on the world or the fish, I didn't really feel immersed in the experience at all. I'd love to see a version of this with more polish and more life to the area. I just think this could have been so much more, and I felt a bit let down. Speaking of feeling let down, let's talk about Sunhaven. Now, as of recording this video, Sunhaven has been out for over a month in America, and there is currently still no bug patch to all of the performance issues that we're experiencing on the game. Sunhaven is actually a great farming sim, a farming sim I spent many hours in, a farming sim that I loved just on my PC and Steam Deck. But on the Nintendo Switch, it's currently a bit of a mess. Right now, the biggest and most pressing issue is the fact that the game constantly crashes, and there is no ability for you to save in the game without also quitting it at the same time. And what really tops this off is the loading times, as it will take you a good couple of minutes to save the game, exit back to the main menu, and log back into the game to begin where you left off. And this essentially led to me anxiously playing the game on the Switch, because I just felt like I was consistently just waiting for the next crash and wondering how much progress I would lose when it happened. But thankfully, a lot of these issues are going to be patched very soon. Now, because I know the game itself is actually a lot of fun and has a lot of hours in it, I'm going to put it in the C tier, but I cannot stress enough, this is a game you do not want to buy as of right now. Speaking of do not buy games, I'm going to put Lake in there, and this is going in the F tier. Now, this is a really painful one to put in the F tier because the game itself is actually fantastic, as this is based in 1986 and sees you play as Meredith, who decides to take a break from her career in the big city to deliver mail back in her hometown. And the game will see you drive around the entire town, deliver packages to each person's doorstep, and when you're not working, you get to choose exactly what Meredith does with her day, be it making friends or helping out your neighbors. The issue is, as you'll be able to see, it just doesn't look great on the Nintendo Switch whatsoever. And this made what should have been a chill experience into a not so great one. I'm also going to put Orange Seasons into the F tier. Now, this isn't because it runs badly on the Switch. In fact, it runs absolutely fine. It is because I really didn't enjoy this game whatsoever. It's really rare that I put games in the F tier that aren't games that perform absolutely terribly on the Switch, but Orange Seasons is a game I just didn't vibe with at all. And that's simply because not only did I find it boring, I also found it incredibly tedious to play. And this is a really rare feeling for me to feel. I've played a lot of life sims and farming sims before, a lot of games that are pretty slow at the start, but this was a game that no matter how much I made myself play, I just seemed to enjoy it less and less. As I just felt like every single quest the game gave you, the game actively made it difficult for you to complete. Be it the map that made just about no sense and you couldn't figure out where you were, and at one point I even had to wiki where I lived to try and remember what spot that was in. The quests themselves don't have markers or any indication where to go whatsoever for them. And the fact that the game's money system just made no sense. I could make tens of thousands per day just picking up things that I could find anywhere on the floor that made the farming absolutely pointless. I think the magic for me is that farming sims make you feel wanted and make you feel special, as they normally give you a purpose and everyone in town notices you and recognizes you, making you feel like you found a brand new home. And I think the fundamental issue with Orange Seasons is they kind of forgot or didn't understand what made farming sims so fun and so special, as this seems to miss the mark on almost every single thing that I look for in a farming sim. I'd like to think that this is something that could be improved over time with updates and stuff, but as of right now, it just wasn't my cup of tea whatsoever. Another game I was a little bit disappointed with is Fabledon. Now this is a game I've enjoyed a ton of off of the Nintendo Switch, but the Nintendo Switch port just didn't quite do it for me. This is a city building game, so admittedly I always knew I wasn't going to have the best time on the Nintendo Switch, as these are not games I typically enjoy with a controller. But I will say Fabledon made it a little bit more awkward than other city builders I've played with a controller, as they made some interesting choices with how they bound the controls. And even though Fabledon is meant to be a pretty chill city building experience, seeing you build your very own kingdom from the ground up, thanks to the awkward controls and the laggier experience the further you get throughout the game, it didn't really feel all that chill. So I'm gonna put it in the C tier. Next up, let's talk about the My Sims Cozy Bundle. And I'm a little bit torn with this one because the bundle itself comes with 2 games. It comes with the original My Sims and then also My Sims Kingdom. Now, My Sims Kingdom, I actually found myself really enjoying. The dialogue and the story in the game were pretty witty, meaning that I always felt like I knew what I was doing and I was enjoying doing it. I also really enjoyed the fact that there was a lot of moving parts in the things you built in My Sims Kingdom. And whenever I felt like I was getting a little bit bored in the area I was in, the story always took you to a brand new space, which really kept things new and different and kept me hooked with the entire game. The issue is I didn't feel as fondly about the original My Sims. And I think which of the 2 you prefer depends on what you're looking for in a game. The original My Sims doesn't really come with much of a story and instead sends you off to just craft different bits and pieces for various characters, and is definitely a lot less dialogue heavy. So if you're just looking for the decorating and crafting mechanics, you might actually find yourself preferring this one. But I was definitely more invested in the story and the dialogue than I was necessarily just the decorating aspects. So for me, I found the fact that the 2 games were lumped together in a single bundle actually kind of its downfall, as you couldn't buy one without the other, even if one of those 2 games isn't really your style as much as the other one was. So for that reason, I think I'm gonna put it in the B tier because My Sims is holding back My Sims Kingdom. I think now it's time to talk about some of my favorite games because we talked a lot about some games that disappointed me. So first up, we have Eeowna, which has to be one of my favorite cozy games of the entire year. I'm going to put this in the A tier because it's a game I keep on going back to. It's a game that gives me the satisfaction of Power Wash Sim, but also a little bit more of a purpose. And these really adorable creatures called Loddles. In this, you simply just clean the ocean. You pick up any of the trash that you see floating around, you recycle it to improve your equipment, and then you float around and clean off all of the gunk on all of the plants and even the creatures. And despite the fact that you have an oxygen meter because you're under the ocean, it's something that you don't even notice after a while because it is so easy to float around and gain extra oxygen that it's not really anything to be stressed by. This became my go-to game whenever I was feeling remotely stressed, and I just love it to pieces. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom was another favorite this year. I think I really want to put it in the S tier, but I think more realistically it's like an A+. Because S tier games to me are absolutely flawless, and there were a few times I found Echoes of Wisdom a little bit frustrating, but this is definitely one of my favorite games of the year because it mixed some really unique puzzle solving elements with the Echoes mechanic, where you could call upon any object or enemy that you've seen before and use it to solve the puzzles in really unique ways, with also a really fun story that saw Zelda go out there and not only save Hyrule, but also Link. And although sometimes the echo mechanics got in the way more than they felt enjoyable, for the most part they were really fun, really unique, and I had a blast with this. So definitely deserving A+. It's slightly higher than the other A tier games, but not quite, you know, Balatro flawless level. Next up, I want to talk about Core Keeper because this does not get nearly enough hype, as this is absolutely fantastic and combines so many elements of games I love all in one single package. This is described as being a mining sandbox and will see you mine, build, craft, and farm, all to uncover a mystery of the ancient core. And much like the likes of Minecraft, this really is a tailor your own experience game, because you can either spend all of your time making the most beautiful house, you can also farm in this with not only seeds, but also livestock that you find along the way. Or you can explore to the far reaches of this world, finding every single secret there is to uncover and fighting a lot of things that get in your way. And I love that this has so many different difficulty settings for you to choose from. So not only does this have a casual game mode that reduces the enemy's health and damage by 50%, you also have a harder game mode that increases it by 50%. But they've also given a creative game mode on top of this that allows you to build a limitless world by allowing you access to almost all of the items in Core Keeper from the very beginning, allowing you to focus more on the building than anything else. I don't think I'll ever get over just how much game there is for the price, especially considering the fact that you can play this with up to 8 people, which I actually think is the better way to play this. Thoroughly underrated, plays fantastically on the Nintendo Switch, even if it does look a lot prettier on other platforms, and I cannot recommend it enough. I wish I talked about it more this year. So for that reason, it's gonna go in the A tier. Another game I need to talk about even more is Outer Wilds. I wasn't expecting this game to affect me the way it did, but honestly the ending was absolutely superb and something I will remember for a long time. It's also not a game I can talk a lot about, because the thing that makes Outer Wilds special is the way you uncover the story and the secrets. In this, you play as a brand new astronaut who's on the quest to find answers to the constantly evolving solar system around them. The only issue is, after you set off for your very first space mission, you find yourself and the entire solar system trapped in an endless time loop. And the really wild part is, the time loop is something that you'll learn to use to your advantage. As I said, I don't want to spoil anything. This game's story unravels at your own pace. It is completely open solar system, not open world. So you can fly off and get bits of the story at any point you end up landing on. But the storytelling, the puzzles you encounter, all involving the time loop just make things so much fun. And the story is so profound and had such an impact on me. And the ending honestly made me cry. And I'm going to describe Outer Wilds the way it was described to me to make me want to pick it up for the very first time. And that is that if there was a game out there that I could play for the very first time all over again, it would be this one. The whole experience was such a special one, so unique, nothing like I've ever played before. And honestly, just give it a go and don't be afraid to use a wiki if you get really stuck, because sometimes there are moments where you might be absolutely clueless. Now, despite the fact that the gameplay is flawless, the game doesn't run flawlessly on the Nintendo Switch, so I am going to put it in A tier, because it is let down by some of the loading that you get when flying around occasionally. Hopefully it's something they will continue to fix in the future, and I know there's been some patches for it, but otherwise it would be an S tier game, I think. Another game going in A tier because I absolutely adored it is Moonstone Island. I've spent a lot of time talking about this, so I won't spend very long, but this is such a wonderful mixture between life sim and monster catching game. I love the fact that they have an equivalent to shiny hunting in this on top of the gameplay that's already in it, and I truly feel that a lot of monster catching games misses the core elements of just having a place to call home and the ability to make friends on your journey. So the fact that they added romance to an otherwise incredible game just made this even better. Paper Trail is also going to go in A tier because this is truly such a unique puzzle game. And this combines a wonderful story about a girl making her way to university with some really intricate and different puzzle solving mechanics. You see, in Paper Trail, the way you solve puzzles is by folding the paper. And because of the designs that you can see on the other side of the page, this leads to some really interesting puzzles where you've got to fold the paper in different ways in order to get the main character to pass through it. Now, this definitely had a steep learning curve to it, and even though the game starts off pretty easy at the beginning, it still took a while for me to be able to think in the right way to solve the puzzles. But after things start to click, it is such a fun mechanic. And it's also a game that has a wonderful hint system inside of it, which I really appreciated. So even when you got really stuck, you could simply click on the guide and it would give you a step-by-step show of how to get to the answer, which means that you could look at the first 2 folds, for example, and then try and figure it out for yourself, or look all the way to the end of the answer if you're really stuck. Then we have Sticky Business, which I'm going to put in the B tier. This is another fantastic game that I had a lot of fun with and sees you run your very own sticker business. Seeing you go from the design stage of putting different things together to make your very own sticker, to then laying them out on the sticker page and printing them out, to packaging each of your orders as well. And as you progress, you can spend the money that you get from selling your stickers to upgrade your sticker making business, be it buying new paper that sparkles or holographic paper, or upgrading the little bits and bobs you can put in each of the sticker packages to make your delivery a little bit special. It's a great game to pick up whether you have 5 minutes or 5 hours, and I really enjoyed every single aspect of this, not just designing the stickers or packaging them, but the entire process. Another game of a similar feeling, and I pick up for the same reason, is Stitch. And this is effectively a Sudoku-like puzzle game, all based around stitching. And the thing I really love about this is that you can tailor your entire experience. You can play really short and easy levels that you can be done in 5 or 10 minutes. You can also take on really difficult levels that will have you thinking really hard on every single stitch you place to make sure it's the right one. And then you also have marathon levels that are ones that will take you ages to complete, so you don't have to think about anything else. I love this for when I'm watching TV and just want something to occupy my brain just a little bit. And I feel like it's definitely a forgotten gem on the Nintendo Switch. Then we have Tavern Talk, which I'm also going to put in the A tier. I absolutely adore visual novel games, and a visual novel inspired by D&D fantasy is just absolutely perfect to me. I think the thing that kept me coming back for more with Tavern Talk is not only the world building through your conversations with all of your clients as you work in a tavern and make them drinks, but the fact that you can influence each of the characters' destinies by the drink you serve them before they leave. I put this in my top 10 cozy games of the year list for a reason, as this became my go-to comfort game when I just wanted to escape the world for a little bit. And although the entire game takes place from behind the bar, you get to learn all about the fantasy world which you live in through the conversations of the customers, not only with you, but also with each other. And if you're someone like me who's trying to trick myself into reading a little bit more, it's a great place to start because it's interactive, meaning that you won't, fall asleep while reading it, which is my biggest issue when reading books, but it also has a lot of dialogue, a lot of story, and gives you the same sort of vibes as reading a book, just with a little bit more of a hand in staying awake. Next, we have Bandle Tale, which again, one of my favorite cozy games of the year, a game that I've enjoyed so much. It mixes all of the things I love about an RPG with the coziness of having no combat whatsoever, as this has a fantastic story, incredible dialogue with each of the characters that kept me coming back for more. But the XP grinding itself isn't done by fighting, but it's done by crafting. It's definitely a game where you'll need the wiki open though, as not everything is super clear as to what to do, but I enjoyed it nevertheless, and I'm going to put it in A tier. Next up is Minami Lane, which I'm going to put in the B tier. I had to include this on the list because for its price, this is absolutely fantastic. This is a cozy casual management sim, and this will see you build your very own street, allowing you to place anything from houses to shops, and you'll be able to listen to what the residents ask for to figure out what exactly needs to be placed next. My favorite part of this entire game is the fact that you can control literally everything about the shop. So for example, if you place a boba shop, you'll be able to control each and every element of the boba shop, including its inventory, recipes, and prices, in order to make it perfect for each of the residents. Each of the levels you play will have different objectives, making sure that the gameplay never feels too repetitive. I also love that they have 3 pretty achievable objectives if you play long enough, but also a bonus and slightly harder objective that will definitely take a lot more planning and thought in order to obtain. And one thing I really do appreciate is the fact that it is so easy to make an aesthetic street. I'm not someone who is particularly good at decorating, but because there's just a few preset designs to choose from, it's really easy to make something that looks great. I was also pleasantly surprised by how this controlled on the Nintendo Switch. It all felt easy and intuitive, and I never really found myself getting frustrated at controller controls, which is rare for this type of game. It's a great game for its price and something I've really enjoyed this year. Another game I've enjoyed is Snufkin Melodies of Moomin Valley, which is going in A tier. My main criticism for this is it just wasn't long enough. I had no idea who Moomin Roll was before I played this, but now I'm utterly obsessed, and I adored the vibes that Snufkin Melody of Moomin Valley gave us. As with no combat in it whatsoever, this was a game simply about its story, and followed Snufkin as he worked his way across the valley to try and meet up with his friend Moomin Roll after his hibernation. The only issue is the valley doesn't look all the same as it did when Snufkin left. And now it's been taken over by egregious parks that are not only getting in Snufkin's way, but also the inhabitants of the valley as well. So Snufkin takes it upon himself to get rid of the parks by pulling out all of the signposts to try and help all the creatures he meets along the way. My favourite part is how music has a role in every single aspect of the game, with you needing to play your flute to interact with some of the creatures and the landscapes in front of you. This is a game with immaculate vibes, and I think many people are gonna love it. And the DLC just released that gives you a little bit more content if you're after more. Back to some games that disappointed me. We have Mario and Luigi Brothership, which I'm gonna put in the C tier. This is by no means a bad game. It just overall wasn't exactly what I was looking for. The story didn't grip me as much as I wanted it to, and considering it cost the same price as Mario RPG and Paper Mario, which we'll get on in a second, I just didn't feel like it was as worth my money as those two. As although the combat was fun, it just didn't draw me in the same way they did. So speaking of Paper Mario and Super Mario RPG, I think I'm going to put them in the S tier, as these two thoroughly surprised me, and I did wind up really enjoying them. Both of these had a fantastic story that meant that I just wanted to keep on playing it, and I was really taken aback by Super Mario RPG's cutscenes, as although they didn't really have voice acting, they were animated in a really fantastic way. But both of these surprised me dialogue-wise. They were so witty and so fun, and something I haven't seen in Mario in quite a while. And both of them had fantastic combat systems, with them both being turn-based but requiring time-based button presses, meaning that you couldn't really switch off in battle, which I liked as it kept my attention. These just feel a little bit different from Mario and Luigi Brothership because of its story, and for that reason it kept me wanting to play more and really enjoying them, and I didn't think I was gonna like these just as much as I did. Next up, let's talk about Garden Witch Life. Again, this was a big disappointment to me. Not only did it have huge performance issues on the Nintendo Switch, with it looking absolutely dreadful at points, it also was a game that had a very slow start and most definitely felt a little bit boring at the beginning. And even though after a solid couple of hours the game picks up a little bit, it still wasn't enough for me to want to pick this game up again. So for that reason, it's gonna go in the F tier. Another Code Recollection was another fun game, but I really didn't find myself going back to it whatsoever. I really thought I'd vibe more with this detective and clue-based game, but I think the pacing was a little bit weird for me. I did appreciate the fact that there were full-on cutscenes, it was voice acted from beginning to end, and the fact that it contained more than one game inside of it. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in the B tier. I just wish it was a game I played a little bit more than I did, and I honestly nearly forgot that it came out in 2024. Next up is Cat Quest 3, which is going to go in the B tier. If you love Cat Quest games already, this will be fantastic for you. It's just more of what you love. And again, Cat Quest games are absolutely fantastic for the price. This mixes in turn-based battle systems with an open-ish world, but the difference with Cat Quest 3 is the fact that you're actually a cat pirate. So in this, you take to the seas on the quest for treasure. There isn't a whole lot to this, everything's pretty surface level, what you see is what you get, but you can play this with another player as well to spice up the fun a little bit more, and for the price, it is great fun. Little Kitty Big City is another one that's going to go in the B tier. This was like Untitled Goose Game, but with a cat. Although I will say not all of the puzzles are quite so intricate or mind-bending as they were for Untitled Goose Game. Things were a little bit more straightforward, which honestly for this sort of game I really appreciate. If you're someone who played Stray and just wished it was more of a cutesy cat game, then this is what you're looking for, as this sees you run around the city all in the attempt to make your way back home. But of course, as a cat, you do cause a little bit of mischief on the way. I love how you can interact with the world, being able to swipe at random humans who walk past and all of that. And the puzzles were genuinely a lot of fun to figure out. I think my only wish for Little Kitty Big City is that the game was a little bit longer and that my cat could wear more than just one hat, because it was absolutely adorable. Caravan Sandwich, I'm going to put in the C tier. Now, I really did enjoy the game's premise. This sees you return to a dystopian land where most of the humans have left, leaving only robots, in the hopes of solving the mystery of your sister's disappearance. Despite its great story, the performance issues on the Switch were not great and just left me feeling a little bit frustrated and it's sometimes a bit motion sick at the driving around parts, especially when you try to speed up and the frame drops were more noticeable. Outside of the Nintendo Switch, this is a really fun game. I was just sad it released in a not so great state for the Switch. And for that reason, I'm also going to put Garden Witch Life in the C tier as well. On the PC, this game is absolutely stunning, but on the Switch, it just wasn't for me. A large part of the draw of Garden Witch Life is being able to make an absolutely beautiful garden. So when it doesn't really live up to that on the Switch, it takes away a big reason to enjoy it. I was also somewhat surprised at the price of this, given what you can do with the game is largely about just making a garden. So for that reason, I thought C tier is perfect. Mario Party Jamboree, I'm going to put in A tier. I love the Mario Party games, but as you know, they are best played with friends, which isn't the main way a lot of us play the Nintendo Switch. But the reason it's not going in S tier and going in A tier instead is even though the multiplayer was so much fun, and I actually think this is my favorite Mario Party game of all time, like they absolutely nailed it with the mini games they included in this one. When I was playing online with friends, there was noticeable lag on the Nintendo Switch when you were playing the mini games. Now, for the most part, this didn't make a huge difference, especially because everyone was experiencing the lag, including the host, but it was noticeable and it did take away from some of the gameplay elements. So if they had removed that, it'd probably be S tier, but the Nintendo Switch online gameplay is always hit or miss. Next up is Critter Cafe, which I'm going to put, I think, in the C tier. And the main reason why is there were aspects I absolutely loved and appreciated in Critter Cafe, but I think the weirdest thing was how every single part of the gameplay experience was catered to different ability levels. So Critter Cafe is split up into 3 different parts. You have the cafe experience where you get to run your very own cafe. You have the puzzle side of the game where you go off and solve these different puzzles that involve pushing and pulling different blocks in order to get and rescue what they call a critter, which are absolutely adorable. And then to finish us off, you have the critter care side of things. Now, the puzzles I really did enjoy, and they actually got pretty difficult towards the end. There were a few times where I was reasonably stuck and I had to put the game down and come back to it a little bit later to figure out what I needed to do, but it was all worthwhile for the really cute critter saving scene. I love those. And I will give this game credit. It looks surprisingly good on the Nintendo Switch. I was not prepared for it to run quite this well. The issue is that despite the fact that the puzzles are hard, the cafe management side of things has fully embraced the 0 bad consequences, which I know for a lot of people they'll love, but they might not expect this big difference in the difficulty level of kind of tricky puzzles and then 0 consequence cafe management. There's not really any timers in this. There's no consequence for you giving the wrong thing to the wrong customers. You don't get scored. There is no losing. There's just these little mini games that you play depending on what items you're serving the customers. Then you have the really adorable critter management side of things where you let them go to the habitat that you can decorate and watch them run around. This is by far one of my favorite parts of the game. I love just watching the critters go around and be absolutely adorable. I just wish that there was just a little bit more to the critter care, giving it a bit more of a purpose. I love this aspect so much, and I would have loved to have some more like daycare vibes to it. and also a camera mode. I think as long as you know what you're getting yourself in for, you will enjoy Critter Cafe. It's just making sure that you know that the puzzles may be difficult, but the rest of the game is super chill. Next, we have Disney Dreamlight Valley Storybook Vale. I wasn't the biggest fan of the last Disney Dreamlight Valley DLC. I found it to be too much of the same from the main Disney Dreamlight Valley story that I just wound up getting a little bit bored. But thankfully the story in Storybook Vale is so much better than the previous DLC, and I found myself enjoying this so much more. I still feel like Disney Dreamlight Valley could do a little bit more to shake things up and make the gameplay feel fresh and new in the DLCs, and hopefully that's something we'll see in the future. The main thing letting this down is the Switch's performance. I feel like it's not something that's particularly improved over time for Disney Dreamlight Valley and has in fact been getting gradually worse. So hopefully as they update the DLC and add more things to it, they can work on the performance issues. But for now, this is going to go in the B tier. Next, we have Luigi's Mansion 2, which I'm going to put in the B tier. It's not a bad game, I just don't feel like it was as good as Luigi's Mansion 3. And if Nintendo want to charge full price for a remake, then I'm going to judge it against all of their other AAA games at the same price. And to me, this feels a noticeable quality down from Luigi's Mansion 3, not only in its graphics, but also in the gameplay style as well. Europa, I'm also going to put in the B tier. This looks pretty good on the Switch. It obviously looks miles better on the PC. I really did enjoy the story and the essence of Europa. But I am thankful that they included a Zen mode for this, as one thing I wasn't expecting was to be actively shot at in some of the levels. But this combination of puzzle elements, exploration, and also the story made for a really fun game. Planet of Lana, I think I'm going to put in the A tier. I really did enjoy this experience. It's sort of a platforming-like game with a absolutely incredible story, all about trying to save your friend after an alien invasion. The thing I really enjoyed about this is the mixture of puzzle elements and platforming, and the fact that the stressful moments in the game made the cozy moments feel that much cozier. Also, the little guy you make friends with along the way, he's so cute and I love him so much. The story of this is fantastic despite the fact there weren't any words whatsoever. I think this game got massively overshadowed with the time in the year that it came out. I love it. I definitely recommend it. Next up is the Plucky Squire, which I'm gonna put in... It's like B+. We'll go B for now. Despite the fact that this wasn't a difficult game whatsoever, it was a lot of fun. The dialogue and the story were so funny. I love the fact that this takes in so many different gameplay styles, with your character switching between 2D and 3D to solve puzzles. And you even get to see the characters have a bit of a crisis when they realize that they are storybook characters. It's just witty, funny, and fantastic. Then we have Cameru, which I think I'm going to put in the C tier. I like this game. It's fun. It definitely gives mobile game vibes. I think I'd prefer it on my mobile phone. It just feels a little bit awkward when you're playing it with controllers and not in like a fun way. You do take care of a really adorable little frog refuge, being able to place food and decorations down for each of the frogs, where you're then able to take pictures of them and write down all of the unique types of breeds that you find and different colorings. There's also a breeding mechanic to it where you can breed new colors and patterns to the frogs to try and get them all. It's a lot of fun, really cute, but definitely felt better on the mobile phone. Petite Island, I'm also going to put in the C tier. There's a lot I really enjoyed about this, like the story that's all to do with a grandparent having dementia, which I could really relate to. It's just let down by the performance on the Nintendo Switch. There's some pretty harsh frame drops in there when you're running around the world, and at points the world just felt a little bit empty. I would have loved to have seen NPCs running around and doing a little bit more than they already did. The story itself is wonderful. I love all the life sim elements and how they tie together with each of the characters that you meet. And I love that everything you do in the game is to try and rekindle your relationship with your grandfather as you try and get a connection with him through his old memories. We're finally on to the last two games. Now, Botany Manor is going to go in the A tier. This was a really fun and unique puzzle game that sees you search this manor for clues on how to get each of these flowers to bloom under the right conditions. And these clues can be found as just about anything, be it snippets of newspapers that you find lying around, articles that are stuck up on the wall, or even just hints at a single location. And you can put all of this together to find the right soil and conditions for the flower to bloom. And you do all of this whilst discovering the story of Arabella and the challenges she faced as a woman navigating her scientific career in the 19th century. I love puzzle games that are different and unique, and this is definitely that, and I had so much fun playing it. It looked and performed great on the Nintendo Switch as well. And finally, we have Hades, which is gonna go in the S tier. This is not a new game, but it was new to me, and I have been absolutely loving it, even though I thought roguelikes were not my sort of thing. I think the thing that keeps me going in Hades though is the fact that one, I can see myself getting a little bit better with every run that I do, and two, the fact that I love the dialogue with each of the different gods. I can't believe it took me till 2024 to try this game out, but I cannot wait to play Hades 2 when that finally fully releases. What a spectacular game that I have adored playing on the Switch. That's it for every single Nintendo Switch game I've played in 2024. Thank you for a wonderful year, and I can't wait to see what 2025 holds. And maybe it will be the year of the Switch too. And if you want to see my most played games ever on the Nintendo Switch, click this video here.